Have you ever wanted to listen to two random dudes on the internet talk about their views?
Well, I'm Matt.
And I'm Bill.
And this is the Two Dudes with a View podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Two Dudes with a View podcast. My name is Matt, and as always, I am joined by my good friend from down under. Not really, but it's like 4 hours. Bill, how you doing?
Not too bad. I guess I kind of am down under, right? I'm just not Aussie. I'm just down under you in New York.
Exactly. You know, I feel like we start off every day in every show by talking about how the weather's been. Now, let me just say how my weather has been, and then you can fill me in, because we actually haven't talked about this today. So I took, actually, it would be a week ago now since when this comes out, but this last weekend I spent in Ohio doing some of my favorite things, and that's watching drum lines and drumming itself. And it was like 90 degrees. It was like 87 one day and like 84 the other. It was beautiful, amazing, and got a little sunburn. I come back Monday, Tuesday, now we're into Wednesday. It's been a max of 40, and I just looked outside and it's snowing. What? Mother Nature's dyslexic, and I don't know what's going on. How's it been for you?
Well, kind of the same, I suppose. It's, it goes from 77 on the weekend. They say, oh, a cold front's moving in, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden I leave my jacket in my car now because I don't know what to think.
I do the same.
I don't want to leave it in the house and then go outside and be like, shit, it's cold, I got to go back in, because then I might not want to come back out. But if I leave it in the car, then I know that I'm at least going there, so I'm headed towards something warm. Yeah. I just don't think Father Winter wants to give up yet. He hasn't had enough.
I don't think so. It's not going to go down without a fight. Anyways, we got a great episode for you today. A lot of, a couple major topics, couple things that me and Bill follow that we just like to do personally, so we thought we would bring it in. And actually some more interesting stuff. And I want to cover this week, before we go into the topics for this week, I want to cover something that we mentioned last week related to sports. And I think it was you, Bill, that brought up that a specific person got fired for a very specific reason. And we just want to mention, some people thought we were joking when we said that. We weren't. That was legit. That for all the reasons you can get fired, that was a legit reason. And, it was...
Well, it was a reason. It wasn't legit.
Yeah, true.
Who gets fired for eating a slice of pizza because the team wants you to eat a chicken salad sandwich? Like, what? That is so... But it's real. I thought it was like some kind of April Fool's prank or some kind of weird publicity stunt. No, he legit got fired. Yep. And from what I understand is he's actually thinking of suing the team.
He should. He honestly should. If that was me, and I don't know what's in the contracts and whatever, and we covered part of this last week, but I don't think they have a right to tell you what you can eat, drink, sleep, whatever. It just doesn't seem right to me. Again, I don't know what's in the contracts, but anyways, we just wanted to cover that because, it seemed a little far-fetched and out there, and don't get me wrong, me and Bill are pretty far-fetched at times, but that was totally legit. Anyways, in this week's show, we're going to cover quite a few things, like I said. We're going to start off by going to space with SpaceX and some major things that have happened in that realm. We're going to then take it down back to Florida, and one very powerful Florida man is at it again, making people mad. In a good way, though, I think. We'll see. We'll talk about it. Then we're going to switch to sports and cover what I call a little bit between Pop Warner football and like the NFL. somewhere in the middle there. We got some football coverage coming from this weird program we'll tell you about. Then we're going to jump over to the United Nations and how not united they are. Well, in this case, maybe they are. We'll see. And then we're going to end it with something we talked about last week. We're going to talk about it again because it's come to fruition. And quite frankly, me and Bill want to cover it because, you know, all you keyboard warriors out there, some are happy, some are not. So we'll cover that at the end. Other than that, let's jump right into it. Let's talk about it, Bill. SpaceX. Now, me and you have spent numerous nights till like 4 a.m. watching SpaceX launch. Well, we watched Crew 1. We watched, I think, Crew 2. We watched the return of Crew 1.
Yeah, well, we watched Demo 2 when they launched
2, yeah.
Doug and the other guy, Bob and Doug, Space Dads.
Yeah. So we spent numerous nights up, like I said, until 4 a.m. watching SpaceX launch these aircraft for the first time. I mean, we saw the first human space flight for SpaceX, which was actually kind of awesome. And now we're seeing, so that was Demo 2. They had Crew 1, which sent 4 astronauts. They had Crew 2, which sent 4 astronauts. They had Crew 3, which is actually supposed to come back in like 5 or 6 days. By the time you guys hear this, they'll be on their way back, if not back already, depending on when you're listening to it. But that was Crew 3, sent 4 astronauts. Now, we're recording this Wednesday, like I said. We say every week, we're recording this Wednesday, but early this morning, very early, like, 3 in the morning, somewhere around there? I think so.
Yeah, it was like somewhere between 1 and 3, depending on where you are in the country, or maybe even later in the world. Who knows?
Yeah, so somewhere in that time frame, Crew 4 launched to the International Space Station, sent 4 more astronauts. They're actually docking. Actually, have docked at the time we're recording this. They've been docked for roughly an hour and 45 minutes, going on 2 hours at this point. So they docked. Now, I don't know the true, all the things behind it, but let me say that was the quickest we've seen a SpaceX launch to dock on a Dragon spacecraft with a Falcon 9. We were talking about this before we recorded. That seems awfully fast. I don't know what they figured out, but
yeah, like I remember whenever they did the demo launch during the live stream of it. They said something like, obviously, this 24 or 28 hour pretty much coast phase, because it only takes 9 minutes to get there. But that coast phase was going to be that long. And they said it's not normal. They're going to work to try to reduce it.
Well,
but then the next 2 or 3 launches, whatever it was slow as hell.
AX1, which we're going to get to here in a minute, they took 26 hours. So, I mean, less than 24. I mean, they're pretty impressive. But yeah, Crew 4 launched. They have docked at the International Space Station. And they're going to be up there for, I actually don't know how long, to do science and all this fun stuff that they do up there. I don't even know, what else they do besides just science. I know they do a lot, but
I'd like to think they play Monopoly or Connect 4 or something.
Well, I know they sing. They don't have a table up there to eat on, but I know they gather in that little hub and sing Kumbaya around a fake fire while eating freeze-dried ice cream sandwiches.
Because space food is amazing. Let me tell you, if you haven't eaten it.
Let me say that some of the best ice cream I've had is, space ice cream, freeze-dried ice cream sandwiches. Anyways, let me just say, so these are the 4 astronauts that went up there on their second space flight, and the commander for Crew 4, and I'm going to butcher these names, I greatly apologize. Coming from NASA, it's Kjell Lindgren, again, on their second space flight. The pilot, Robert Hines, also from NASA, on their first space flight. From ESA, so that's the European Space Agency, Samantha Cristoforetti, somewhere around there, I think I got that somewhat right, on their second space flight, and they're Mission Specialist 1, and the Mission Specialist 2, Jessica Watkins from NASA, also on their first space flight. So 2 first-timers and two second timers, so it should be a good crew. And they're gonna be up there. It's 4.5 months, according to NASA, is what they're gonna spend up there. So,
But I watched the obviously not the live version because I was nighty night, but I watched the replay. I watched the live version after the fact. You know how they always have the 0G indicators that they tie down?
Yep.
Well, during this one they had two. They had a monkey and a turtle.
Huh.
And it was really weird to hear the commentator say it, but I didn't know that they actually gave names to the trainings that they do. So these astronauts that went up were part of what was called the turtle class of astronauts. I don't know what that means. Is that like they were slow at learning, or
I would hope not. I mean, they're astronauts; they're expected to do a lot.
Yeah, because if something goes wrong, they got to think fast. There can't be no turtle up there.
Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, they went up there. 4.5 months. They're going to spend up there doing science and all kinds of stuff. They're actually taking over command of the ISS tonight from the Crew 3. From Crew 3, they're going to be returning, like I said, in 4 or 5 days. By the time you guys hear this, they'll be back. If not currently plummeting to the Earth while you're listening to it, you never know. Look outside. You might see them. Anyways, in other SpaceX news, they launched another crew that was up there for 2 weeks called Axiom 1. And this is where things get interesting, and there's been mixed opinions. Now, everyone knows that NASA launches people into space to do science, so on and so forth. And I would say like 75% of American citizens and citizens from the European, Space Agency, blah, 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 so on and so forth, Japan, even Russia, would support space travel for science. However, Axiom 1 was a little bit different, but not completely different. Axiom 1 was a full civilian crew. Well, I should say that in quote. Full civilian crew that went to the International Space Station for 2 weeks. They were piloted by a very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very experienced pilot. On their 5th space flight, this was their 5th space flight, went on a couple different space shuttles. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. They went on a couple space shuttle trips, 4 to be exact, 3 to be exact, and I think one was a Russian Soyuz they went up on. But spacecraft commander Michael Lopez Alguera who's obviously currently retired from NASA and spaceflight, a little old, but God bless him, took 3 civilians, very, very rich civilians, to the International Space Station, but they also did work up there. They did science, they helped out with things around the space station, and were actually productive up there. Spent 15 days, a little over 15 and a half days up there, while docked, and had some fun. But this has also drawn a lot of controversy over, should we just let millionaires and billionaires spend money to go to space? I don't know.
I kind of have to agree with kind of what you said, in a sense that, like, all right, these rich people paid to go up there.
$55 million each, U.S. money. Now,
yeah,
let me just say that only 2 of the 4 were American citizens, Larry Connor and Michael Lopez Alguera, who was the spacecraft commander, and then the pilot, who was Larry. And then there was a Canadian, Mark Pathy, who was one of the mission specialists, and then a Israeli, I'm going to butcher this name, it's Ethan Stibble. Maybe I won't butcher it. Ethan Stibble, who went up there as well. Both on their first space flight.
Well, here's where I kind of find it funny, right? Like, these people paid $54 million each. So that's what, 4 seats? That's basically, let's just call it $216 million for people to go faster than hell up to a thing floating around the Earth. So the last thing you would think is that somebody could say, hey, you just paid me $54 million for this ride, but when you get up there, you have to do certain things. Like you have to. I think that's a fair trade.
Well, they went up there, like I said, they did science. They helped with. Obviously, didn't do any spacewalks because they're severely undertrained for that. But they helped around the station, making sure if something broke, whatever. They helped fix it, so on and so forth. But they actually did things. Now, this was, if you remember way back, this was the mission that Tom Cruise and one of his producers, I forget his name, was supposed to go on. They were supposed to go on for a film that they were doing or whatever, and they decided not to. And I think if I remember correctly, they're actually going on a later flight. I don't know which one, but this was the one that they were supposed to go on. And,
well, to my knowledge, the only Earth to space celebrity based thing is Blue Origin. They're the ones who's like, hey, spend all this money, we'll shoot you up for 15 seconds in space, and then you fall back to Earth, and here you go, or whatever it is.
Well, I know NASA announced this was like, shows you how long ago. It was like beginning of 2020, like January, February 2020, that they were working with Tom Cruise and whoever this, I don't know what this film producer's name is. I could probably look it up. But they were going to fly essentially him to the ISS to do some sort of project, filming project or whatever, whether it would be probably more like a documentary type thing. And then also to get him experience and knowledge based, for the ISS, because I know he was working on a movie and whatnot. And that was going to be on this crew, but I don't know what happened. I know that was a while ago that, that kind of fizzled out. But I would like to see him go at some point. Who knows? But yeah, so I think, like you said, going back to what you said, I think it's fair that, they paid $55 million a piece. I don't know what the current cost is of flying a Dragon and Falcon 9 to the ISS. I can only assume it's well over $55 million a seat. But I think it's fair that A, they pay this, and then B, they also do some work while they're up there because, it's not often that you get to spend a 2-week vacation away from everyone in your household that constantly just annoys you in the rarest place to go on Earth. I think that's fair. But we'll see. I mean, that was... I'm assuming, because, like I said, that one was a fairly success. They're back in the States now. Splashdown, I think, was Monday, if I'm not mistaken. Somewhere around there.
Yeah, they landed Monday. It was like...
I know it was during the day at some point, but...
Yeah, but it was a weird thing because the stream of it, they always show that screwed up angle where all you see is just this bright white thing falling from the sky
Yeah.
Because obviously the temperature, it's crazy. You don't really get to see nothing, and then when they do show you, once they've made it back into the atmosphere, the camera angle is still like a form of infrared, so you really still don't know what you're seeing until the chutes deploy. Otherwise, it just looks like this weird ball falling.
Yeah. I do want to, speaking on the topic of cameras, though, I don't know if you've seen, Bill, I don't know if you've watched any of the launches. I want to commend SpaceX and give them the highest, like, the Presidential Medal of Freedom or whatever, for fixing the camera on their drone ship so that we can see that stupid rocket land. It only took them 3 years, but they finally did it, and I want to give them the highest medal that I can for it. Because it's just, I love watching that thing land. It's not often that you see something go 30 miles into space and then just land perfectly.
Yeah, and also, first off, the fact that they were able to figure that out after they were able to figure out how to land the damn thing,
I know,
is kind of like
it's
baffling.
Kinda sad,
like that should have been
be
the
honest.
easy part. The easiest thing in the world is, okay, we're going to be out in the ocean. We have things flying around in the sky that we could use readily to our advantage. The Starlink things that they're probably definitely using.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So why would it go down? And I was reading up on it months ago that it's the vibration that the engine causes on the ship that caused the cameras to fail.
So I've read a thing on it. There's, I guess, different frequencies and whatnot that are operating on the drone ship, like everything's got a frequency. But when that vibration from obviously the rocket, because it has to propel itself to slow itself down. The vibrations from that were interfering the waves that were going to the satellites, and you gotta remember, the drone ship's off of Florida's coast, but mission control is in Hawthorne, California. So there's the signal comes from the drone ship, goes up into the sky in Florida, and then all the way out west to California. So there is some interference there, but I guess they just had to change like the frequency that the camera was on, and it like fixed itself. Regardless, I mean, bravo for sending people to space, but I mean, super pat on the back for fixing the camera. I love it. Amazing.
Absolutely. This ain't on the format, but it's something that I think is kind of noteworthy. Is anybody that follows SpaceX knows that in Boca Chica, Texas, they're trying to get permission from the FCC to launch a Starship.
Yeah.
And it has since been pushed back again.
We're talking the full Starship here, like everything.
Yeah, the first orbital test of the Starship. It has been basically denied, and another reschedule has happened. But because of that, like, SpaceX isn't stupid. They know that there are certain places that they'll be able to launch unrestricted, and one of those places is Cape Canaveral. So they're building basically the whole chopstick system to catch the Starship. They're building a new one down in Florida so they can launch from there, which I think would have been smart in the first place, but just considering people are bitching about SpaceX launching small things.
I know his entire plan is to build like 30 of them across the United States and just launch wherever he wants to. Because his ultimate goal, that thing holds like 100 plus people. His ultimate goal is to make space travel, you spend $150, not that little, but for this theory, $150, you get a ticket and you go to the moon. You spend another $150 to get a ticket, you come back, or you go to Mars or wherever. Space travel. So he wants to make it countrywide, maybe even globally, I don't know. Make it easy for people to launch themselves into space. Hope they got good insurance, but,
Hey, look, I'm scared to death of heights. But if somebody said, hey, Bill, I will pay for it. You get on that rocket with me and let's go up to the moon and we'll come back. I'll pay the whole way.
Yep.
I'll be like, what the hell's his name from the A-Team? The dude
I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name.
The tough Mr. T is who he is, but his character name in the show is Scared to Death of Heights. So they have to like B.A. Baracus or something like that.
It's like there's times where I hate just the force of a roller coaster. Not because I hate roller coasters, I love roller coasters, but you just get that feeling at times. It's like, I know the first 10 seconds I'd get that feeling, and then I'd be like, oh, okay, this is easy, let's do it. But yeah, I'm with you as well. I'm like, if someone wants to pay, hey, if any of our listeners are millionaires or billionaires out there, hit us up. Let's talk. We'll go on a trip, we'll film it for you, we'll vlog it.
The only condition I have is that they allow me, they have to allow me to be able to have a non-window seat and have a 30-pack of Budweiser strapped beside me. That way, I don't need it while I'm flying.
You want it when you're there.
Once you put me in there and strap my ass down, I need access to this beer so I can get completely wasted and don't give no shits at all about what's about to happen. Because I'm going to need to do something.
We might as well just give you a window seat because you're not going to care.
Well, that might be different. Because, okay, so here's weird, right? Is if I'm on a rocket flying, I'm going to be scared shitless because I don't even like being on an airplane. So I can't imagine being on a rocket going way up in the air. But once I'm like once we land on the moon or wherever we land, and I'm able to get out and not float away and still feel like I'm somewhat on Earth because my feet are touching a solid object that ain't going to fall out of the sky, I'll be all right. Now, if I'm on the moon, the hard part's going to be getting me back on the ship to get home because I might not want to do that. Yeah, but like, could you just leave me here? Because I think if I get on this, something might go wrong, and I don't really want to go to Jupiter or something today, so...
yeah, I mean, hey, I'd be hesitant for about 3 seconds, and then I'd say, yeah, let's just do it. I don't know. I think it'd be fun. It's not often you get to just, I don't even know how fast Starship's going to be accelerating at. It's obviously going to be fast enough, but I don't know what the speeds are or the Gs are. I can only assume, though. It's going to be a rough ride for the first 30 seconds to a minute.
Well, I think if I remember correctly, SpaceX tries to maintain a 3.5 G, so it's not
that's
extremely
not horrible at
ridiculous.
all. That's not bad at all.
Yeah, but you still have, I mean, so much could go wrong.
I mean, that's extremely accurate that so much can go wrong, but
there's also that solace in knowing that if you're on one of them and something goes wrong with the rocket, those Drago thrusters on the capsule are going to pull your ass so far away from it before something can actually happen to you. But just to know that happened, like, it's not great that they have white suits.
Well, you need something,
I'm gonna need a brown suit. Get me a brown suit before we go flying, because
or we'll just get you a diaper. It'll be all right.
Something. Just don't be sitting next to me.
Don't worry, I won't be. I'll be looking at you from across the ship.
I'll be the whitest thing on there. I'll be whiter than my suit. I'll be ready to pass out.
Oh boy, what are we gonna do with you, Bill? I know what we're gonna do. We're just gonna send you to the moon and never come back.
I'll go up there. Hell,
colonize it for us. You can be the leader. Speaking of leaders, though, there's one very particular leader, a Florida man, that being said, who is pissing some people off, but not. I mean, I guess it did start with him pissing people off, and then they pissed him off, so he's pissing them back off. But Bill, you want? I'm just gonna let you cover this one. I'll let you go at it first because I think you're gonna have fun with this one.
Yeah, because I can't stand the fact that this was even a thing. But before we do that, I just real quick have to say this is he signed a bill into action a month ago. Everybody's calling the Don't Say Gay bill.
Oh.
Right. So today I was at work and a song came on the radio and I was like, holy hell, this should have been playing the entire time he was signing it. And that's Pink Floyd's Teacher, Leave Those Kids Alone. That song should have been playing the whole time.
Amazing.
But aside from that, so somehow Disney is its own country, apparently. They're able to do, whatever the hell they want to do. And the fact that since 1967, whatever happened then, that Florida decided that they were allowed to have their own government and operate as their own, basically their own state inside of a state, and get away with everything that the Democrats or Democratic people are saying that Trump did, tax evasion, all this crap. But they were able to do it.
The Ready Creek Improvement District is the official name of it.
Yeah. They're governing themselves.
Yes. They literally have their own government.
And somehow their government has been able to do the one thing that no other municipality in the country has been able to do, and that's bypass that state law. Whatever the state law is, the counties have to follow it. They can't make a law that supersedes that law.
Yeah,
except for
if most, I don't know, I'm assuming most states are like this, but for instance, New York State, if the state makes a law saying whatever, you can, drunk driving is the limit's 0.08. Well, the county or the local ordinance can make a law that supersedes it, but it must be the same law or stricter. So the county could come in and say, or the state could come in, or the city could say, well, if you're in our city and you're caught drunk driving and you blow a 0.04, you're going to get charged instead of a 0.08. So they can quote unquote supersede a law, but it has to be stricter and not, lesser of a law. I'm assuming most states are like that, including Florida. But I mean, I want to know what happened in '67.
Because I know here in PA, if the state government passes a bill that says, we'll use your analogy. that and it's not even a real good analogy because the federal, like the countrywide limit is 0.08. But let's just say it was up to the states to decide that in itself. If, say, the state government, or let's just say the local government had a 0.9 as the legal limit that they would allow before you're drunk, then the state comes out and says, well, the state recognized 0.08 as the limit, so it's enforceable by the state. So basically what that is telling the local municipalities, local governments, that they have to change their law back to meet with that, because if not, then if you get arrested, say I'm driving down the street, bam, I blow a 0.08 and or 0.08 and they let me go, and then I drive a little bit further down the road and I kill somebody, and a state cop comes up and tests me and I'm at 0.09, then I'm going to be charged by the state. But I would have a counter argument saying the city or the municipality said I was 1 point under.
Yeah.
So it becomes like a legal argument at that point.
Yeah,
that's
why things can be stricter and not lesser.
Right. So the fact that, and I don't, like I said, to agree with you is, I don't know what happened in 1967 to allow this to happen, but Ron DeSantis signing the bill that basically said, nope, Disney, you're now just a thing inside of our state and you're going to follow our state laws, and that's how it's going to be. And to be honest, it's actually out of spite. It was a spiteful thing that Florida did because of 100%. What Disney's doing. But I think anybody with a brain, like, they always say that the children are the most innocent. The children are the future. The fact that you're willing to teach a kid, if you want to teach a kid that, dude looks like a lady, then that's fine.
Just give them the Aerosmith song.
Yeah, you shouldn't be telling them, hey, it's now there's some guys out there that have boobies, and that guy is a girl now.
Listen,
you shouldn't be allowed to tell kids that.
Moobs are a real problem for some people, okay? Even if they're not a guy-girl. They're just a real problem for some people.
I think it's common sense.
Oh, yeah, I think it is, too.
You shouldn't be teaching kids. There used to be a class in school called sex ed. That was a very uncomfortable thing to be in. Like,
we never had that, but it was I'm assuming the same type of thing was put in our health program. So we just had a class that was health, that dealt with basic health science of a human that every high schooler truly needed because they all stinked.
Exactly, and that's when we started learning it, was in high school. So it was part of health class, but it was a part of health class called sex ed.
Yep.
Where it was like a week-long thing where they basically went over, what an STD is, and here's a banana, let's learn how to put a condom on a banana, kind of stupid things that we did. And it was uncomfortable in high school. You shouldn't be teaching 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds what a condom is. Like, could you imagine being in a store and some little kid behind you goes, Daddy, look at the condom.
Yeah,
We put one of them on a banana. I would be that's just basically the fact that they want to do that, to me, is glorifying pedophilia.
It's disgusting, is it what it is?
It's glorifying pedophilia. It's going to have these kids growing up thinking that sex is so important that they taught us about intercourse in second grade. So when I get to 5th grade, I'm going to start having sex.
As I say, like, all your kindergarten, your 1st, 2nd, 3rd, even up to 5th grade, you're still learning, like, the basics. Like, what 2 + 2 is, and your ABCs, and, like, come on.
Yeah. Well, the problem I have with the education system now is there's places on applications, on checks, on anything official that says signature required.
And they don't even know how to sign.
They're not even teaching cursive anymore.
So I've been out of high school for almost 4 years now, and about a month and a half. No, not even a month. It'll be 4 years. I was the last class to learn cursive, and that was taught to us in 4th grade. We started in 4th grade and finished, did the basics in like 4th grade, and then 5th grade was kind of the more of
we're doing, a little bit longer sentences and like letter writing and whatnot. I was the last class to do that. Everyone behind me, all the people I know that are even a year behind me, no idea. And I signed my name, and they're like, "What is that?" I'm like, dude, I just signed my name. Like, here's the M, here's the A, the T, all this other stuff. They have no idea. They're not teaching the basics anymore. They're just throwing all this random crap at them and saying, "Here, this is useless shit you'll need." They don't even.
Yeah, ignorance is bliss.
Thankfully, I know, and I've obviously had good influences in my life, so I've been able to do this. But they don't even teach people how to write checks, how to balance a bank account. No wonder people are poor and spending so much money on clothes every week and random stuff they don't need, because they don't teach that stuff. They just spend all their time doing all this weird. I don't even know what they do anymore, to be honest with you.
Apparently, they're teaching them that guys can be girls and girls can be guys, and it doesn't matter what gender you are. Like, I get the fact that no matter what gender we are, we're equal, but that's not the same.
No,
you can't be a guy in a weightlifting competition with a girl and not expect to win.
And that's a completely separate conversation that we can have. But in the end of the day, it's just not fair. Now, I understand, and it's like it's like anything else, right? If you do whatever you want, I don't care. But don't rub it in my face and make it, not everyone wants to do the exact same thing as you. Not everyone believes in the exact same things as you. And, I mean, you got the freedom to do whatever you want, and by all means, do it. Just don't rub it in other people's faces, especially, kindergartners and second graders, and that's just, I don't know, it's stupid.
Let them find out on their own how it works and make a decision. Don't teach them and influence them how it works.
If they really, if they are truly intrigued by it and thinking about it, there's resources out there and means out there for them to do that stuff and figure that out and understand what's going on and make their own informed decision. I don't think we need to shove it down their throats. But anyways, going back, so DeSantis signing this thing to dissolve and remove Disney's special status. Now, and this includes the fact that they can govern themselves and make their own laws and all that internally, but it also removes their tax bracket too, their special tax bracket, which I don't know what it was at. I didn't hear, and I haven't done the research on it, but I know it was somewhat significantly less than the average state tax bracket, which for a multi-billion-dollar company with the largest, place that they own, obviously they have their own government, the largest place they own, that's a significant hurt to them if their tax bracket and their tax rates go up. I mean, they're a multi-billion-dollar company, so it doesn't matter too much for them, but still, in the end of the day, put some hurt on them. But me and you talked about, Bill, before we started, about, and I brought something up. So this is Disney World in Florida we're talking about. Disney World that can govern themselves, well, not anymore, but can govern themselves and all that fun stuff. And since the announcement of this, there's been numerous, thousands of very well-known people, both from political candidates to just media sources and journalists and so on and so forth, that said, why doesn't Disney just pack up and move to the state, a different state that supports them? Why don't they just, I don't know, move to, say, New York or move to Virginia, wherever? One of these states that's going to support them. Well, A, 2 reasons. B, it's going to cost them more than it's worth to literally tear down and rebuild everything that they have built up already in Disney World, not to mention probably 15 years worth of work from start to finish, just with how much they have done. And B,
that's probably just to build that goofy ass golf ball thing that they have.
I know, right? But B, look at it this way, right? You got Disneyland in California, And while I know Disneyland in California is very, very significantly smaller, I mean, we're talking Disneyland itself can fit within like 2 parks within Disney World. You know, that's a very, very significant size difference. But if you look at Disneyland in California, they don't govern themselves. They don't, you know, they don't have their own sets of rules or anything like that. And
I honestly think, like we were talking earlier, and it dawned on me after. Didn't mean to cut you off, but I also think that the reason why that might be a thing is because California is known for more than just, you know, Disney, like entertainment. If the entertainment in California is the movie industry, that's where they're making their revenue. So they're not going to say, "Oh, you have a roller coaster and a mouse, a guy dressed up in a mouse outfit. We're going to give you special stuff." But Florida, that's Florida's thing. What else do they have besides that? Like, they have sports teams, but what other revenue do they have that's nationally or globally?
If you really think about Florida, though, they have the summer vacation hotspots. They got Miami, they got Fort Lauderdale, they got, you know, all these places. Not to mention they got things like SpaceX and NASA and all that in Cape Canaveral.
But where are these vacationers going on vacation? They're not going down there to look at a palm tree. I mean, probably a vast majority of them are going to Disney World at some point, that's revenue.
Not all the summer you know, the spring break people. No, they go down to literally just sit on a beach for 7 days because they got nothing better to do. And then in return, because they're spending 7 days on a beach, they're ordering beachside service at, you know, $75 a drink. That's where that money comes from.
I would like to see what Disney World's contribution, like
I would too, but I have a feeling
in terms of as a business, where they rank in Florida as a business.
I would too, but I have a feeling that number's confidential. I don't know,
or not accurate. Whatever's public is probably not accurate.
Oh yeah, 100%. So a couple statistics here. Disneyland in California is significantly older. It opened in 1955, July 17th, 1955. Disney World, now it is evolving, continued to evolve, opened October 1st, 1971. So it is a little bit older. However, Disneyland's only 100 acres. Disney World's like 25,000. So I could understand the difference there. Like, you know, Disney World, they're significantly larger, you know, 30 times larger, to be able to kind of govern themselves, and they're like literally at their own county. However, like, and I understand that Disney World wants to have all these special things and be able to make their own rules, and, you know, the biggest thing for them is they don't have to abide by building and planning codes currently under their Reedy Creek Improvement District. So they can do whatever they want building wise. And it's honestly, when I found that out, I was actually kind of shocked that more people haven't, like, you know, died because they just keep building random things without these super good codes, because they can just bypass everything. But, you know, I understand that. But if you look at them, it's like Disneyland, yeah, it's significantly smaller. But if Disney really wanted a monopoly and control completely on their own stuff, you would think that they would also push California to say, hey, we're small, it really doesn't matter a whole lot if you just give us this extra perks, because we're already kind of doing it anyways because we're small, so you should just give it to us anyways, and then we can kind of take care of that as well.
Well, here you go. Here's an idea. If they want to make their own laws and do all their own happy horse shit, they should just buy up Epstein Island and build Disney.
I was just gonna say
Disney Island.
My thing, if Puerto Rico really wants to become a U.S. state, just send Disney down there, give them the entire island of Puerto Rico, say at least 3/4 of it has to remain as it is. You get this little section, you know, obviously it would be a ton bigger than what they currently have. You get this section, do whatever you want in this section. Close down Florida, Disney World in Florida, close down Disneyland in California. You got a one-stop destination. And then if you do that, we'll make Puerto Rico the 51st state.
I'll bet you, out of all of this, the people that are running, like, you know, fairs and even, I'm sure there's a bunch of amusement resorts down there that aren't Disney
tons.
World, right?
Tons.
I'll bet you they're happier than hell right now that they're no longer going to be the ones forced to try to keep up. Now,
Yeah, they're not
to
the
be
most
fair,
expensive hotels anymore. They're not, you know, all this other stuff. They don't have to abide by special rules that no one else does.
right? Disney, and like I said, I'm a realist, right? Like, I understand that Disney is a large part of Florida's economy, probably hands down, maybe the largest. They should have some kind of special, like, you know, here, we're going to do this for you. We're going to allow you to do this. But the stuff that they're currently allowed, well, not anymore, but the stuff that they were allowed to do under the special status is so egregious to other, even businesses that aren't in the entertainment, like theme park, just businesses in general that have to follow health codes. And you know, you open up a restaurant in Florida, you got to follow health codes there, where your food has to be at a certain temperature, and your business has to be this way, and there has to be so much ventilation, so much seating. Not there. Nope, they can do whatever the hell they wanted. You want to, you know, we have this extra. We just tore this building down, and screw it, let's build a bathroom. But we're going to build the bathroom how we want it to look, not how the state says is sanitary for other people to use,
which again creates just additional problems and all this other stuff in the future that is, you know, just like, you know, looking at this now, and I believe this is going to be what's going to happen. Disney's not going to move. It's just going to cost, it's going to be too much of a hassle. It's going to cost them too much money. They're just going to suck up and deal with it, which is what they should do. However, now that this is done, and this bill is in place and the government's dissolved, what's going to happen with all those sketchy things that they did? All these buildings and building codes and all this other stuff that they built and did that doesn't meet state code. Can Florida now go in and...
I don't think so.
Because they're not grandfathered in, though.
But they're going to have to grandfather that stuff in, unless it's a clear and imminent danger to public health or safety.
Which I wouldn't be surprised if half of it is already.
There's places that around where I used to live that you could look at with your own eyes and say, I ain't going to hell in there. How's that place still open? Because that place was built or you know, last remodeled prior to the code change. Now that Florida can enforce code on Disney World, any business or building that was erected prior to this has to be grandfathered in to whatever the code was when this agreement was signed in 1967. It doesn't matter if it was built yesterday. It's still that agreement of 1967 will supersede anything. So the fact that it's going to be that, now I'm sure, I would like to think anyway, that Disney wants their people to be safe, and you know,
I would hope so.
Yeah, they're not doing something stupid or shady to try to save money, because that would just be completely backwards to any kind of business model ever, unless you're running a illegal scam.
Which, I mean...
But if somebody said, like if you went down there tomorrow and you're like, I'm going down for the weekend, and you decided to get on a ride and you seen that while this ride was moving around, there was a weird loose chain or, you know, sparks flying from something, and you reported it, they went in and checked it, found it, they could shut it down, because then at that point it becomes a public health or safety hazard. They'll be able to do something about it. I just think the fact that this has happened for 67 to now.
That's a good question. Here, let me do quick math. 2022 and 67, 55 years.
Okay, so 55 years. So the fact that this has been a thing for 55 years.
It's almost as old as you, Bill.
Yeah, almost. Disney has built such working capital that this law is not going to affect them in any way. Like I said
no,
at the
not at
beginning,
all.
this was out of spite because Disney's doing this whole, gay character thing and transgender characters, and that goes against Florida's law that they signed previous, as we talked about earlier, that says you can't teach people this stuff.
Yep.
So this bill was out of spite. This is like, we didn't realize it was on the books. We caught it. This allows them the opportunity to do this. Nope, not no more. We vote. It's passed. The governor signs it into law. It takes that away. So it's not going to affect the day-to-day operations of Disney. It's going to affect what they can do to the people that come there. They can no longer, have a guy wearing a dress with hot pink hair running around calling himself Susie.
Yeah.
They can't do that now because that goes against the state law. And now that they're not their own government, they can't say what the law is that they do.
Exactly. So by them essentially just throwing a hissy fit, they created more issues for themselves. In the long term, at least, when it comes to
yeah, that's basically what
all that fun
they
stuff.
They were the first ones to come out against the bill that said, you can't teach kids this stuff, because they instantly came up with their own phrase saying, "Don't say gay." I have personally spent time to read some of that bill. That bill is so damn big. Reading it is, but what's nice with a PDF is you can Control F and just type in the word gay.
Yep.
And it'll take you to the first word gay in the bill. There is none.
No.
There is nowhere in that bill does it say the word gay. Now, it does say the word don't a couple times. It says the word say a couple times, but it never says in consecutive words, don't say gay.
Nope.
I don't think the word gay is offensive. There's other words that are offensive to gay people.
Before, people were gay and bisexual and lesbian, the word gay literally meant happy. It meant you were in a happy mood. So, even well before, I'm assuming it was a long, long, long time ago, but even before the first, outpour of gay people, the word just meant happy. So I don't understand. I don't know the origin of why they use the word gay for, one man liking another man or woman liking a whatever. I don't know the origin in the history about why they use the word gay, but it literally meant happy way, 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 way back then. And listen, like I said earlier, do whatever you want to do. I'm not going to stop you. I support it, whatever. Just don't rub it in my face and don't make everyone else learn about it.
Yeah, I'm kind of there with you. Like, I'm not a big supporter of it because I was raised by Irish grandparents, and they were very religious in a non-religious way. Like, they believed in God, they did all this stuff. But I was also raised that a union was between a man and a woman. Now, obviously, things change, times change. It is what it is. But now we're to the point where anybody that says anything offensive, you're breaking the rules.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way that everyone's taught nowadays.
I look at it like this: you do you, just don't do you to me.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. In the end of the day, I mean, like I've said 2 times now, 3 times. Just don't rub it into my own face. Past that, do whatever you want, but I don't know. We'll see. I have a feeling that this is definitely not the end of this conflict. 100% have that feeling that there's going to be something else. It's now Disney's turn to fight back. They're going to find something stupid, and then it's just going to be back and forth for probably 6 months. That's my prediction. I guess we'll come back in 6 months and see how accurate that prediction was. Anyways, moving on.
there is this thing that, quite frankly, is somewhat stupid, I believe. It's this thing called, now we all know, we've talked about this before, we all know NFL, the National Football League. We all know all these other spin-off leagues that we've talked about before. But there's this thing called fan-controlled football, or FCF. And let me say, it is the funniest form of football ever. And like I said at the top of the show, it's the mix between Pop Warner football, JV high school football, and the NFL. Instead of a 100-yard field, it's a 50-yard field. So instead of having a 50-yard line, you got a 25-yard line. Instead of the field being, I don't even know how many yards it is across, whatever it is, it's like half the size across. There's only like 7 people out there at a time. It's just this weird league if you're used to watching normal football. However, as the name suggests, it's fan controlled. It's weird the way it works. Now, I don't know a whole lot about this, and Bill can chime in here in a minute because he knows a little bit more. He did some reading. But to me, it seems, the way they're doing this fan control stuff, essentially the fans call the plays. They get an option of like 4 passing plays and 4 running plays per play. Like you still got 4 downs, all that fun stuff. So every time there's a play, you get to pick, fans get to pick between 4 passing plays, 4 running plays, but it's up to a vote. And there's points, and I guess there's like some IQ points that go towards it, whatever. And to me, it just seems like a wannabe real life video game, because the way you vote is going to their website or logging on to their Twitch. So it just seems, for those of you who don't know, Twitch is a streaming platform usually for video games. So it just seems like they want to be a real life video game type deal. I don't know. Bill, why don't you fill us in a little bit more, because just a millisecond more of information than I do here. This is just very weird all around.
Right. So quite a few years ago, there was a thing called the AFL, the Arena Football League. I watched it. I thought it was pretty good. Like, there was no out of bounds. There was a sideline that you'd basically get tackled into, but it was a padded wall all the way around the entire thing. Same concept, 50-yard field with a 25-yard line being in the middle, 25 yards on either side. And it was like, I was a fan of the Philadelphia Soul, which was one of their teams. But the gameplay is so fast that they could rack up scores so quick. On the kickoff, if the field goal thing was set in 3 different ways. It was like, a normal upright, but it was narrower, and then there was a upright after that and an upright after that. During a kickoff, they could actually score points on a kickoff by making it into a certain area. That's essentially what I get from this, and I only watched a game. And I was so confused by it, but the only reason I stayed with it was because there was 2 NFL players that were there, Johnny Football, Johnny Manziel, and Terrell Owens. So Terrell Owens has been out of the league since what? Like 2011, 10, somewhere like that?
Yeah.
Like, he's been out of the league for a long time. He played for the Cowboys, the Eagles, the 49ers.
Well, I mean, he's 48 years old, so.
Yeah. But he plays it, and what blew me away, first I thought it was like I was watching a replay is what I thought, because they put a graphic up over the screen. But it was actually live play. So during the live play, whatever the fans voted as the play, these players have to run this play. And they'll put a graphic over the team as they're lined up to show you where these players are going to go. So first off, on the players, great job for being able to memorize what the hell play it is and what your route's supposed to be. But 2, isn't it kind of cheating in a sense if somebody's watching this live and they see it and they're able to get a hold of somebody fast enough to say, oh, it's a pass play. It just doesn't seem right. And
Yeah, I mean,
the
it's
second
weird
thing
there,
that
but-
really bugs me with it is once they score, I can't imagine there being a bunch of people in there, because when a team scores, they set off this array of strobe lights on the field.
Epilepsy warning.
Yeah, holy crap. If you suffer from epilepsy in any way, this is not the sport for you. That game will kill you.
And I think I understand what they're trying to do here, because everyone wishes, like in an NFL game, and everyone said it, and I said it myself this year when Buffalo lost to Kansas City with 13 seconds left. I said, why didn't you just run this one stupid play and this would all be over with? So I understand what they're trying to do and say, hey, at this point, you've controlled everything. You picked the play. Like, listen, if you picked it, it's on you if it fails. And that's where the whole, like, IQ, I think they're calling them IQ points or whatever comes in. If you pick the right play and it works, you get this amount of points, say you get 500 points. But if you pick the right play and that play doesn't win and they end up running a different play, but that play fails that they ran, you get 1,000 points because you would have picked a play that might have worked. And I don't know. I know there's different levels to it, and it's very, very complicated, to be honest with you. So I understand the point where they're like, hey, let's get fans involved so that they're not yelling at their TV anymore saying, just run this rushing play and this would all be over with.
To me, I look at this fan-controlled football, compare it much to a penguin.
Oh?
It's a bird. It's a bird that will never fly.
Well,
it has wings, but it'll never fly.
And that's where I'm getting at here. I can also see the side of, this is a little bit fun. There's some big names like Terrell Owens and Johnny Manziel that you might get with it being a little less complicated and more technology advanced with going onto their Twitch channel to vote for the play or their website or whatever. It gets technology involved. So I can see where they're trying to get younger people involved with the sport. But like you said, Bill, that's like the sport is a bird. And fan-controlled football is the penguin. They're a bird, but they're really not a bird. They just kind of sit there with wings and do really nothing. That's what
they got wings, but they can't fly. That is, now don't get me wrong. It's very entertaining to watch. Near impossible to follow. Like, there's no way anybody unless you don't follow NFL, you don't follow college football. Hell, you don't even follow the USFL, which I don't even know why you would. But if you did, and then you somehow found fan-controlled football, you would have no idea what's going on. That is the most confusing bullshit ever. They don't throw... I watched pass interferences call. Now, I took the test and I refereed some football games in my life. There's plays that this is 20 years after I refereed a football game. I'm still reaching for my side to try to grab the flag. Like, that's clearly a pass interference. So, but they're also playing in a very controlled environment where they must be playing on an air mattress.
Probably.
Yeah,
if they're 48 years old, they better be, because they might break something.
There's no way. Like, they look like football players. They're wearing helmets and pads, and there's a football. But it's everything is a jump ball when it's a pass. It's not a deliberate pass. You're not like shooting a line drive 3 feet, 3 yards in front of you, hoping the guy can turn the field and gain you another 7 or 8 yards.
Yeah.
Nope. These are all just basically Hail Marys to the end zone. Everything is a touchdown play. And it's so boring. And if you watch NASCAR, I'm sorry, but it's like a NASCAR race. You know what's going to happen. They're going to go left and left and left and left.
And then the last 10 laps are just going to be caution after caution because they want to wreck each other.
Then they're going to wreck each other.
Yep.
It's very predictable. I wish them luck, but I don't see it going very far.
And honestly, I don't see us covering this much either on our side.
Yeah. I feel like we covered it long enough already.
Yep.
Like, just
So
out of control.
if anyone wants to go check it out, do it.
I don't recommend checking it out for long, though.
Moving forward, We're going to talk about. I'm not going to call it a bombshell. I'm not going to call it major news because, quite frankly, I don't see it doing a whole lot, but maybe it will.
This is your baby here.
Yeah, I know. The United Nations today, in a General Assembly votes, passed I don't know what they call them. I don't know if they call them resolutions or whatever they call them. Passed I'm just going to call it a resolution sponsored by roughly 80 member states. Now, there's 193 countries or quote-unquote member states, part of the United Nations. This was sponsored by 80 of them, and it dealt with veto. So, in the United Nations, there's 5 countries that have veto power, and they're the superpowers of the world, essentially. Kinda. I mean, Anyways, that's the United States, Russia, China, Great Britain, and France. Those 5 can veto pretty much anything. Now, just like the United States, if you look at the Senate, right? The Senate and even the House of Representatives, they have different committees and subcommittees, the Committee on Veterans Affairs and the Judiciary Committee, so on and so forth. There's hundreds of them. And in order for something to get passed, it just doesn't go right to the House or the Senate. It has to go through the committee that it represents, and then that's got to get voted on, and then it's got to go to the actual House to get a vote on as well. Well, the United Nations works very similarly. They got a couple committees, only like 2 or 3, but the biggest one is the Security Council, the UN Security Council. And the superpowers of the world sit on that Security Council. Ironically, it's headed by Russia. And this Security Council votes on things, most recently a lot dealing with the Ukrainian-Russian war. And because certain people, like the superpowers, such as Russia, the president of the Security Council, sit on there, they have veto power, meaning everyone on the council can agree that this resolution should be passed, and then one person, like Russia, the US, China, so on and so forth, can just veto it, and it never comes to fruition. Which, quite frankly, I mean, we've talked about this before, Bill, and we can get into it here in a minute. It doesn't seem 100% right, but we'll get to that in a minute. So today, the United Nations General Assembly, which is all 193 member states, came together and they passed a resolution. So at any point when one of the 5 superpowers vetoes or uses a veto in any form, whether it's in the Security Council or any other subcommittee or even the General Assembly, the General Assembly is now required to meet and have a, quote, debate on the situation that sparked the veto. Now, essentially what this is to say, and it's kind of complicated, so I hope you can stick with me because it's actually a very complex topic. What this means is that the General Assembly doesn't have to do anything. If Russia, so for instance, when the whole Russia-Ukrainian war started, there was a resolution passed presented in the Security Council, the UN Security Council, to essentially say Russia's at fault and should stop immediately. Clearly, that resolution passed, however, it got vetoed by Russia. Ironic, right? But if that was to happen today, so that resolution never made it to the General Assembly and never saw the light of day again. However, if that was to happen today, what would have to happen is that within 10 working days, aka Monday through Friday or working days, so if it happened on Friday, you would have 2 weeks, up until 2 Fridays to do it. Within 10 working days, or business days essentially is what the same definition is, they have to hold a General Assembly debate on why that person used the veto. Now, essentially what this means is that if we take that same example, Russia vetoed that resolution. Russia would now be, presented. They're not required, but they would have to be presented and made available to speak in front of all 192 other member states as to why they vetoed this resolution. On top of that, every member state, all 193 of them, including the one that vetoed, now has the right to stand up and say whether they supported the veto, disagreed with the veto, or really anything they want about the topic. It's not very clear on what they can and cannot talk about. How someone can probably go up there and talk about how they love McDonald's for a living. I don't know. Anyways, this, again, they don't have to, the General Assembly doesn't have to do anything about the veto. They can literally just sit there and listen to people talk for 4 days if they want. Really what this does is just kind of puts accountability somewhat on the superpower that vetoed it by saying, this is why we vetoed it. Now, they're probably not going to be 100% accurate because, let's be honest, no politician or anyone in the UN is politically accurate or correct 100% of the time, because that never happens, right? So, essentially, they're doing this to say, hey, why did you do this? We're going to hold you accountable and say, 192 of us disagree with this, and that veto was completely wrong. And I hope you just made yourself look like a fool to all your people in your all the citizens in your country, or they're just gonna be a big sham and it's actually not gonna do anything. It's actually quite a complex thing. It took me like 5 or 6 articles to read to kind of understand what's going on, and I hope I explained that right. But it just seems like, and Bill, you can chime in here. We talked about this before we started recording, and I think me and you are both in agreement here. If someone vetoes it, one of the superpowers vetoes said bill or resolution, there needs to be a select group of countries. It could be revolving, it can be an elected group based on the General Assembly vote, whatever, that would look at the veto, say, was this justified? The person, the country that vetoed it would have the ability to speak as to why it should be justified, and then determine whether it was a justified veto or not, and either let it through or block it. And I think we're in agreement here with that, Bill. You can chime in because I know you got some stuff to say. That just seems like a reasonable way to do things.
So, first off, let's just say, I think this whole thing is good and bad, and it's not going to work, and it's going to work okay. That's the most hypocritical thing you're ever going to hear, because it's going to work somehow, but it's not going to work because it's going to be drawn out and lead to a bunch of bullshit. But so if Russia vetoes something, now they have to go in front of everybody and say, this is why we vetoed it. But I guess it would be political talk. A veto means it's dead. It's shot down. There's no need for further discussion. So the fact that they put this in, that if they veto something, now they have to go and explain to 192 other people, or I guess groups of people that represent countries, why they vetoed it. So with this whole, thing about Russia being forced to acknowledge the fact that they're the aggressor against Ukraine, of course they're going to veto that. And if, they, like, their argument could be simply, it's not true. To them, it's not true. They're telling you that it's not true because they firmly believe that it's not true, even though they probably know it's not true. But politically,
it's not true.
They can't go in there and say, oh, you know what? You're right. We actually are the aggressor. Do you mind if I stay here for a while? Because I don't really want to go back to Russia. This could be bad for me.
Yeah.
But I also think that, like, to cover what you said is, and I'll even throw the United States under the bus. Let's say the United States vetoed this whole thing that's saying Russia is the aggressor. Well, then there should be an odd number. Don't care what number they pick, 15, 21,
well, it's not
other
like
countries.
It's not like there's 193 of them. You could have a decent amount.
Right, yeah. You could pick whatever random odd number of people you want, countries, to be like a committee to oversee this the reason for the veto. And if they can come up to a unanimous decision that this veto holds weight, and they say, all right, we're going to allow this veto to proceed. Now, this veto will then go back to the floor. So let's just say it's 15 people. All right, well, 8 of those countries said, yep, this veto holds weight. Now we got to take it to the entirety of the United Nations, which it would be 193 minus 1, because the country that vetoed it is clearly going to vote for themselves.
No, yeah, 100%.
And then you can essentially count 8 more people into that because they're the one that said the veto holds weight. So that'd be 9 out of 193. That would leave the remainder of that to vote whether or not that veto is actually legit. And if the veto's holds weight and the vote says so, then the veto should stand. The fact that it's the way it is, I think it's going to lead to more problems, because if the United States says, nope, Russia's not the aggressor, people are going to go, well, regardless, we really don't want to piss off the United States. So even though we know they're wrong, we really like to do trade with them. There's all these other factors that go into this. It's not going to be, they're not going to look at it single-handedly. They're going to look at it as a collective and say, well, damn it, if we vote against the United States, we might lose this import, or we might not be able to export our good there, or whatever. And it's all financial. I think if it came down to the countries voting separately to decide if, Article A is valid, okay, well, Article A is valid, so Group B says it's good. Let's move to Section C and let everybody decide. And then there you go. I think that'd be the best way to go. But that's not how it's going to work, because that's not politically expedient.
Yeah, I mean, and you also got to look at, right, like in this case with Russia and Ukraine, right?
Obviously, the majority of people support Ukraine here.
But there's also countries like Belarus and even China that have either just not voted or voted in favor of Russia. So when making this, if the idea came about to actually make this committee to look at vetoes, so on and so forth, they would have to also take into account, well, we can't have, if it's 15 people, right? We can't have 8 people that are in support of essentially like the U.S. I know that's going to be hard to do with 193 countries, especially when 80 of them, signed on to this veto thing that was co-sponsored by the U.S. So it's going to be hard, but you also can't say, well, we need 8, we can't find 8 people that support Russia or China, or because that's going to be the hard thing, right? Like, you've only got 5 superpowers that can veto: Russia, China, the United States, Great Britain, and France. So if you got 8 people that support essentially the U.S., Great Britain, or France, any veto that Russia or China does, they're just going to, essentially say, nope, it wasn't good. It wasn't a good veto, because they're going to say, well, the U.S., Great Britain, and France, if we vote against them, that goes literally everything. Every import, every export, every modern day civilized thing that you can think of. But on the other hand, if you have 8 people that support Russia and China, which tends to happen, they're going to say, well, screw the U.S., screw Britain, screw France. If we vote against Russia or China, there goes our safety, our protection. We could be the next Ukraine.
All right, well, here's a solution to the problem then. I don't think that aggressive nations should be allowed in the United Nations.
Oh, I agree. But then
any nation that wants to be an aggressor, like obviously China is a large part of.
If you think about that, though, all 5 superpowers would be out. Probably with the exception of France, because honestly, France just kind of gets beat up on. But if you look at the history of the other 4 superpowers, they're all aggressors at some point, or continuing to be.
Well, yeah, I would have to agree, but like the United States is a little bit different.
Yeah, but
We're not necessarily aggressors. We're viewed as in the world as the world's police, but the situations that led up to that, we were not the aggressors in. Like, we didn't tell Japan to come dive bomb us with planes, and
it'd be stupid if we did that.
We didn't tell Hitler to start acting like an asshole and killing a bunch of people just because he wants to. So, but like, those episodes led to what we do now. But basically what I'm saying, aggressor states are states that are, all right, like Russia is clearly an aggression state.
Oh yeah,
that's what 100%. They do.
I mean, look at the past 2 months.
They've literally lied to their people, lied to their military, and said that Ukraine is a bunch of Nazis. Go get them. And these people are coming in, and they're all kids. Let's be fair. They're all, really young. They're coming in there, finding out that, these people are actually like farmers and shit. Let's go. We got to get out. And they leave their tanks and they run. You got China attacking the Uyghurs. You got, it's a bunch of nonsense that I think they need to fix. So it's not really worth spending too much time on how they fix it. The fact they need to fix it is priority number one. And if they, to me, the best way to do it is, I don't know how they would do it. I guess they would have to go through a system or set up some kind of like secure online voting, if that's a thing, and open up voting to every UN nation and say, okay, every civilian in every UN country is allowed to submit one vote. I don't know how they would even tell that that's a thing. And allow them to vote, and then there'd be 1 billion votes coming in, clearly. They'd have to come up with some kind of algorithm that says the yes or no votes. And whatever country is voted no, that they shouldn't be in the UN, should be instantly dissolved because the world has spoken. It shouldn't be, here's a 6-person delegation that represents each country that goes in there and speaks for the people. I think the people of the world should decide, hey, we're part of the United Nations and we don't really like the way this other country's acting, so we're going to vote to get rid of them. And they could do that every 4 or 5 years, do whatever they want. However, some kind of way that the people of the United Nations, not just the representative of the United Nations, but the people of the United Nations can go in and say, no, they shouldn't be here. And obviously that's going to cause a problem, because let's just say Russia gets kicked out or China gets kicked out. Well, that could be looked at as an act of provocation, and they're going to start attacking the countries that they know voted against them. So there's no real way to go about this. I don't know how you feel, but that's just how I feel.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of with you on that. There's 193 members. Now, do I know 193 different countries? Hell no, I don't know. I only know 30. There's 193 countries ranging from, obviously world superpowers like US and Russia to some of the smallest countries in the world. And I could see where it's going to create, if that method happens, it's going to create problems where they say, well, listen, Russia, you've been kind of an asshole for the past, 40 years. And you've used your position as the president of the Security Council to essentially get your way and do whatever you want to, essentially defer blame or send resources, whatever it is. We're gonna remove you. We're gonna take you from an aggressor because you're an aggressor and take you out. So I could see with hot-headed people like Russia and China where that happens and they just go bye-bye and they just explode and then we have a whole nother situation, especially with some of these countries like Russia that have nuclear weapons. That at that point would probably say, screw the rest of the world, click. But if you look at probably it used to be, we haven't heard, I think we covered this last week or the week before. We haven't heard a whole lot about North Korea in a long time, which is kind of scary, but also kind of good at the same time. They're not in the United Nations. Now, even if they were agreed to, kind of be a productive member of the United Nations, they're still a super aggressor, right? Even though they haven't done a whole lot, their continuous threats and their continuous testing of ballistic missiles and so on and so forth, it'd be the same thing. They would never be allowed in. So why let these other aggressors continue to be in and also hold positions where they have the ability to veto or have the ability to essentially do whatever they want to get their own way? I don't quite understand that. I get it, like, the goal of the United Nations is to make everyone united, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. But I don't see it happening specifically recently. And I know there's been some reform. It's been tried to be pushed for a few years. Specifically, I know this one that we've talked about here today has been around for like 2 years, and finally I think Russia kind of sent it over the edge, and that's what kind of got the support of it. But I think, there's been some talks about future reform of the veto power, and maybe they'll do something like we talked about today with doing a board of countries that investigates and tries to look at whether a veto was accurate or warranted, so on and so forth. So maybe they'll do something like, that would be amazing, Bill, if we were talking about this in like a year. They're just like, oh, hey, we're going to do this. We didn't get it from, they didn't get it from us, but we predicted the future.
I was going to say, hey, if y'all are listening and you do enact this, our only condition for you making this public, since this is our idea and I'm going to claim this as intellectual property, is you got to plug this podcast on national or global TV or whatever
Good
you
luck
do.
With that. Listen, I'm in New York. I will drive down to New York City to the United Nations. Bill's closer than I am to it. And we'll meet with you and we'll talk about this, okay? We'll talk about it. We'll work through it. Give me like a slice of pizza. And
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll bring some ham. I'll bring some chicken salad and some pizza. We can talk about it.
That and maybe a cold beer for Bill. 'Cause he's not productive if he doesn't have a drink.
Yeah, I was going to say, a cold beer, you're going to need more than a cold beer. I'm going to need a couple cold beers.
We are dealing with 193 separate governments that don't like each other half the time, so.
And I could probably, as long as they can speak relative English, I'll be all right. So I'm probably definitely going to need beer.
There's translators. So it's good.
Yeah, did you ever watch them guys when they're sitting in there? They got that big goofy headset on. Like they haven't.
I don't understand that headset.
That looks like something from the 1950s. You're telling me?
It looks like they're getting strapped into a Soyuz rocket. It looks like the same headset. With the white and everything, yeah.
Why don't they have regular headsets or the little earpieces that are nondescript?
As I say, you would think like every other member of this country has when they're doing translators for meetings. They just have the little like black discreet earpiece that goes in, and it's like it's never even there. No, they got these big ugly things. Anyways, moving forward, we're going to talk about something we
really hard to transition off of that, isn't it?
It is. It really kind of is. So I'm just going to say moving forward. We're going to talk about something we talked about last week that is officially somewhat official. I'm not going to say it's fully official yet because the ink hasn't been put to the paper, but funding has been secured, deals have been made, and penalties have been put in place in case either party backs out. So we talked about last week, maybe even was it last week or 2 weeks ago? It's 2 weeks ago now, I think.
No, it was last week when it broke. Like it was 2 weeks. We started it 2 weeks ago. It was 2 weeks ago when it was a rumor, and that's when the whole poison pill thing was like,
Gotcha.
this is not great.
Yeah. So
Then it was last week where we said, hey, this might be a real thing, but it's still not sure. But since then, of course, obviously, the way we record these podcasts, news breaks on Mondays and we record on Wednesdays, so
you
it
don't
kind of is a thing.
you don't hear it for a week. You know, in this case, this broke on I think Monday actually, and you won't hear it for another week. So, which is kind of unfortunate. We're looking into fixing that. Maybe we'll figure that out. But we talked about it in episode 3 because the title of episode 3 was Elon Musk versus Twitter. And I remember talking about it last week because that's when we officially said, yeah, this is a real thing. And, you know, all that. Well, Twitter has officially announced they have picked Elon Musk and they are selling it to Elon for $44 billion.
You know what's funny about that? You know what's funny about that, though?
What?
Is the fact that when they said no and they were going to do the whole poison pill thing,
They hurt
is
themselves, honestly, doing that.
well, the fact that Elon was going to buy these shares at this really low price, they thought was unfair. So they're like, all right, so if he decides to do it, we're just going to block him and say that we can essentially create new stock and we're going to own our own stock and he'll never be able to get the majority. But he went and okey doked the system. There are, I think, like 2 or 3 banks that back Twitter that are like in Twitter's back pocket.
Yep.
Elon went to every other bank in the world like the country, the world. He went all over the place and secured funding from them. So it pretty much tied Twitter's hands into saying, we really need to sign this because if we don't, we're never going to get anywhere aside from these 2 or 3 banks that we're currently working with.
Pretty much.
So he went and got, like, because he clearly doesn't have $44 billion in the bank account. With all he does with SpaceX and Tesla,
he's got
obviously
other things he's got to worry about to be.
Yeah, he's making a lot of money, but he's also paying a lot of money to people. So he doesn't have just $44 billion sitting around that he can spend and say, that's all right, I still got another $60 billion in the bank, right? So he secured funding from these other companies, which I guarantee there's some kind of weird deal on, hey, we'll give you, $5 billion, but at this interest rate or whatever. There's clearly some kind of deal there that he's not fronting the money completely. They're going to give him the money in a loan and he's going to pay it and then have to pay it back. But the fact that he did that and Twitter, like the board of directors looked at it and goes, well, that's pretty bad because now whatever companies these banks are major sponsors of, they're going to have to be against. Like the bank's going to force them to be against Twitter if Twitter doesn't accept this. And every company has subsidiaries, which it boils down to the smallest businesses. So Twitter's stood to lose tons of money. And I seen a thing where like the guy that owns the damn thing, whatever his name is getting like some ridiculous $900 and some $1 million or something out of the deal. Like
stupid.
Buddy, you made so much money by accident. You didn't even mean to start Twitter, but you did, and it became a thing, and now you're rich off of it.
He's
now you're
a billionaire himself.
Yeah, now there's somebody going to swoop in and take this from you, and you don't have to go sit in front of Congress anymore or in front of the Senate and do hearings.
Yeah,
I would have been like, sold, it's sold, sell it now, sell. We can get another $1 billion out of them. I don't care, sell it now. Get the damn thing off my hands.
Yep.
But so good for Rocket Man. I hope the hell that he does what he promised. Yeah, I think it's going to be hard. I think it's a stupid idea to take it private because there's more money in stock than just being a private company. No private company stays a private company for long. So I think that in a year or two, Twitter will be back on the market once he kind of goes in there and messes with stuff and changes algorithms and lets people get.
That's where I differ from you. I don't think it will. I think he obviously doesn't care about money, right? Elon's not that type of person. Yeah, he's got a lot of money, he doesn't care about it. Clearly, he's buying Twitter for $44 billion. He doesn't care about what money he has or doesn't have. So, I don't see him doing this just to make money or whatever. I think he's doing this for the reason he stated, to keep free speech free and to, support any idea, regardless of what side it is. And I think if he puts that, as a share on this, as a business on the stock market, it limits what he can do. And that's why he wants to take it private, is so that he has entire control and can guide Twitter in the way he wants to. Once he puts it back on the stock market, he essentially loses part of that. And then he has to do a board of directors.
He's a businessman at the end of the day. And there's no business in this world that is not, like, obviously, not non-profits are one thing, but Twitter has always been a for-profit. That's what fuels its whole existence. Ad revenue and sponsors and corporate sponsors, to be exact, are what have been keeping it going. So I think that at some point, once he gets it restructured to the way that he thinks it should be, with how speech is put out and all this stuff, whether the companies that agree with the philosophy of Twitter at that point, they're still going to want to pay to get their stuff advertised on Twitter, right? They're still going to try to do. So regardless of political affiliations or even ideology, it would be stupid for him to not take it, because to me, the point of what he's doing is he's going to buy it for this price, dissolve the board, make it a private company, restructure the entirety of it so that it fits the image that he thinks it should be, then take it public again, and the stocks are going to blow up, because everybody that has stock in SpaceX, I don't even know if that's a thing yet. I know it was talked about, but
it is, and I actually heard it lost a little, but I haven't really kept up on it.
But people that have stock in that are going to pick up stock in it'll essentially be like Twitter never existed, and then all of a sudden it's a thing that everybody knows about.
Yeah.
Right. So like once Twitter's going on the stock market next Monday, that stock is going to blow up. Everybody's going to buy it up because they're going to want to see what's next. Yeah. And that's where it's going to be profitable again. Now, speaking on a profit margin, though, it's very great for large corporations like Microsoft and all them to probably buy up some stock in it too, so that they have.
Yeah,
but I'm sure Elon's going to create the stock in a way that he will never lose controlling stock in it.
Oh yeah, but Bill Gates and Microsoft are not in good waters with Elon Musk right now, so I don't foresee that happening.
Oh no, he put out some backwards ass tweets, but in a year from now, I'll bet you right now. I don't want to put a money sign on it, but I'd be willing to bet you that if this deal closes tomorrow, May 1st, 2023, Twitter will be back on the market. And it'll be back on the market because that is the best way for it to be like a self-sustaining thing. Otherwise, Elon's going to be the sole proprietor and he's going to have to dump money into it to keep it going. Like businesses that aren't on the look at the Fortune 500. Fortune 500, those companies, that's why they're on the Fortune 500, is because they don't have to worry about money. The money comes in regardless. Whether they have 5 bad years in a row where they lose money, they're still on the Fortune 500 because there's so much money coming in that they can't fall from that. Like, it's physically impossible for them to lose that profit margin. Twitter, to be fair, Elon could probably take it off of there, and the bank account that is the Twitter bank account is probably self-sustainable for the next 5 or 10 years.
Oh, easily.
But in a business, you don't want to spend your working capital without having a profit, like without adding back to it. So he's not going to go, oh, well, according to the bank account, we got $100 billion. Let's just go crazy and do stupid stuff and spend as much as we can and change everything. Meanwhile, there's no money coming in to help resupply this money. I just think that at the end of the day, it'll be public company again.
Well, I guess in 1 year we can revisit it and see who's right. Maybe neither of us will be right at that point. Who knows?
Hell, maybe Twitter won't exist in a year.
I doubt that.
Maybe it'll be rebranded into something else, and we'll look like a bunch of fools.
Probably.
Maybe he'll change the name.
I do want to read a couple funny tweets that have come out from specifically Elon. The first one is, this was only 2 hours ago that he put this out, and I died laughing. This was before we started recording, Bill. This is Elon tweeting, and I quote, "Next, I'm buying Coca-Cola to put the cocaine back in it," end quote. I just, for some reason that just is hilarious to me. I don't understand. But the one that really stood out, it's not a real tweet, it's a fake one that someone just photoshopped in. But the picture is obviously of Elon Musk's tweet thing, and it says, "Now I'm going to buy McDonald's and fix all the ice cream machines." And he retweeted it and said, "Listen, I can't do miracles." So maybe that's his next step, though, is he should try to buy stock in McDonald's ice cream machines. See if he can't fix them. Although their ice cream kind of sucks, but...
What was the first thing you just said that he tweeted?
About the Coca-Cola?
Oh, yeah, you said...
Next I'm buying Coca-Cola to put cocaine back in it?
Yeah, because back when Coca-Cola first was around, they actually put part of the coca plant was in the recipe, which was a way to try to get people addicted to their sodas. So that was pretty good marketing until everybody caught on to it. Then it wasn't.
I mean, hey, listen, he's got some good tweets, but we'll come back in a year and we'll let you know who won this bet. We don't have money on it. It's just pride at this point, but we'll come back and see. Anyways, a little bit shorter than last week's episode, a little bit longer than every other episode. Listen, we got going last week on some of those topics, and we look over and we're like, we're an hour and 50 minutes into this. We better wrap it up. Bill likes to talk a lot, so blame him. It's all his fault. Always is. Anyways, we're gonna...
Well, I'm tall, so I have big lungs, so...
Oh, so you can talk more? Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep, that's how it works. That's scientifically proven.
I don't quote him on that. Anyways, we're gonna wrap it up for this week. Great episode. A lot of things that I enjoy talking about. A lot of things that Bill enjoys talking about, and a lot of fun topics, with the exception of fan control football. I don't find that fun at this point.
Yeah,
That's
it's like throwing up in your mouth.
Just kind of there at that point, but
yeah,
anywho,
horrible.
As we say every week, we thank you guys for tuning in and listening to us. It's very fun. This is episode 5 now. We're past a month through this, and it's been fun so far, and we hope to continue doing it. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can always email us at 2dudes. That's the number 2 dudes with a view at gmail.com. We check our email daily. I have it on my phone. Bill's got it on his computer. I got it on my computer. We check it daily. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, want to talk to us about a topic, want to hear about a topic, let us know, and we'll be sure to get back to you and maybe even cover it. You can also, and I'm gonna defer to Bill to this because it's his favorite part, you can also join our Discord and become a part of the family over there. So, Bill?
Yes. My favorite part.
You love this part. You wait for it every week.
I kind of do. It's kind of wrote down on a tablet that's like, go get him, Bill. But, all right, so I ain't really good, like I say every time, I ain't good with strings of letters, so Matt will put the link to it in the description of this podcast, wherever you're listening to it. But join our Discord if you want us to go over a topic, or if you're just a fan and you want to get in there. We hop in from time to time to shoot the shit with you guys. Definitely join that. Also, just throwing this out there, if you think an hour and a half podcast is a little long and you'd like to see maybe to 1 hour podcasts a week, hop into our Discord, let us know. We can probably try to arrange that. Maybe be more relevant. It wouldn't be a history lesson then. It'd be more of a topical thing. So hit us up, get in there, like he said, email, check our Discord out. You know, we're always around.
Yeah, and we've, like Bill said, we've kind of gone back and forth about doing a couple episodes a week, a little bit shorter episodes, so there might be some of that in the future, but let us know about that too. Like Bill said, we are kind of in a history lesson because things just, the way things work out, it's, 5-6 days before you actually hear them, which is unfortunate, but it's the way we got to do things right now. But anywho, thank you guys for tuning in. Feel free to reach out to us, and as we say, not every week, but some weeks, have a good one, and we hope to catch you around next week for another great episode. With that being said, we'll talk at you next week, and everyone enjoy.
Later.